I used to do like an intro like welcome to this and that, and I started listening to myself. I was like, oh, that is so cringy, man. I cannot, I cannot hear that.
Take it off the internet.
Yeah, exactly.
I saw, man, when we did Startup TV, God, I looked so atrocious, bro. When I saw that on PBS, I was like, I'm a fat slob. That's when I started.
Well, whenever you're like listening to yourself, looking at yourself, like it's always
self-awareness, bro. That's
self-awareness.
When I saw that, I was like, that's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
That's just not even legit, man. There's no excuse for that.
Yeah.
I live on a riverfront. There's like, there's no excuse for that. I gotta go.
Well, I've been looking forward to getting together and doing this. One, because the first, this is so silly, but we've been at a lot of the same events and been in a lot of the same places. And I remember like the first time I heard you actually talk, I was like, damn, that dude's voice is like powerful. Like that is like the perfect like voice for like something like this.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you remembering that, man.
Yeah.
Because I've watched and heard, because I watch everything local. I just like to watch the local business scene, local entrepreneurship scene. So
yeah,
I watched and I was like, man, that's dope. Because I want to, when I published the book and all these other things I'm working on, I want more of this type of environment for information sharing.
Heck and
for community building. I think it's the best medium for that. So
yeah,
I was like, let me just bite and copy Chris for a little bit, check him out.
Yeah, come on. Well, what I'd like to start with is to understand. Let's talk about Genesis Block and what does Genesis Block do, and how did you guys you and Tracy, how did you guys put that together?
Yeah, man. Well, Genesis Block started, I think we officially started February 2020. We didn't have our, obviously it was during COVID. Mm-hmm. So really January 2021 is when we really got off the ground. And the real vision was, the mission was to build entrepreneurship in communities block by block. We saw that there was a real need for, and this has evolved into an innovation hub, but we saw that there was a real need to organize entrepreneurial activity, organize the community, and focus on building a system that could support kind of disadvantaged entrepreneurs. I felt, now they're called micro businesses, but I thought that there was a large segment of entrepreneurship that has no organizational framework. I was out in Silicon Valley, so that ecosystem raised me. And so I was like, I had all these, I was in tech.
Yep.
And I was like, well, why can't we do that for local small businesses, community entrepreneurs, and provide that similar type of framework for their ideation to commercialization? So that was really kind of the genesis of Genesis Block. Problem set. How do we use some of these success traits or some of the success models that have been so successful for technology, emerging techs and biotech and all these other things where they have a really concentrated effort. There's a lot of value there. There's a lot of investment there. How can we apply that to 87% of the business community? And so that was, if you look at the step-by-step, and we started out with Genesis Block, that was a really strong focus with minority business development just because of the timing with George Floyd.
Absolutely.
Obviously, I'm a minority. I'm from this area. Part of my vision with Genesis Block was to come back and build like a mini Silicon Valley for my neighborhood.
Heck yeah.
So, so really that was, so just the timing of it all really fed into the first iteration. But that was really the genesis of Genesis Block. That this would be the block in every community for prosperity, for innovation, for entrepreneurship. So if you go in any town, any city or any locale, I'm gonna go to Genesis Block for my start. And from that point, where it's an idea, I can commercialize it.
Got it.
So that's really the entire dynamic that's driving it. It really is to take community ideas, which are just solutions, really, solutions to problems, and create an organized framework to have a high success rate in the commercialization process.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I mean that's the beauty of entrepreneurship, right? We've talked about this before. Is like I see a problem. And I'm just going to come up with a solution myself. I don't, it would be great if we could get a bunch of other, let's say, governmental type people to fix stuff. But hey, you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and I got an idea. Let's see if this works.
Right. I like that better. I think that I like to call it, I'm a history buff. So when you look at versus the Federalist Papers, read the Anti-Federalist Papers, which is what led up to the Constitutional Convention. And they called it the marketplace of free ideas.
Yep.
Right? The marketplace of free ideas, meaning market where people buy and exchange or exchange value and then ideas. So that is the best environment to solve community issues. A marketplace of free ideas. And so the essence of Genesis Block entrepreneurship, innovation, and all that is how do we remove barriers to get that marketplace for free ideas?
Absolutely.
Because typically the best idea is going to win. So how do we cultivate it? Get all of the different players and parties, all of the, the problem solvers, the people with the problems, to come and create this dynamic, innovative environment. So now everyone knows what the problem set is. We have access to all of these tools with information age. Let's get it done this way. We don't need all of these kind of bureaucratic structures that you alluded to.
Right.
Let's let the best idea solve it.
Yep. And I mean, I guess I'd like to say, I mean, like, I'm not anti-government or anything like that. And there's a huge, we need all that, but we need, empower the people to be able to.
Exactly. I'm a more people's party type guy.
Yeah.
I think the whole purpose of politics is a framework for the organization of society.
There you go.
To coordinate activities.
Yep.
If you go back to Aristotle, and I'm writing a book now, so all this top
Yeah,
of mind.
tell us.
So I'm
tell us
going back
about
to Plato,
that.
right? If you look at Plato and the origin of what politique is supposed to be, it's about how do we organize society? So we coordinate activities for all diversity, all types of people to interact and exchange values together.
Absolutely.
That's the purpose of it. So we should create an environment or a framework that best serves that. Remember, Jefferson and our founding fathers hated political parties. Just fact check me on this. Go read the Anti-Federalist Papers, all of our people.
Yeah.
Go read the Anti-Federalist Papers, because that's where you can really see the dialogue and the dynamic that drove the Constitutional Convention of 1787. I think we all need to revisit what we say is great about our country. We need to get to the ideation stage of our country and then get aligned with those principles. We kind of got lost in the commercialization, if I might use that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that entrepreneurship, innovation, especially with Generation Z, Generation Alpha, now becoming the consumers, we're going to have to organize ourselves better. And I think that's the transformation and some of the friction points that we're seeing in this generational divide and all of these different types of things. I think the system is about to shift.
Yeah.
That's just me, though.
No, you're onto something for sure.
We'll see, Chris, man. We got it here recorded.
Yeah.
If it hits the fan, bro.
So you're originally from North Carolina,
Yeah, man.
And then you moved out to the West Coast and spent a lot of time in Silicon Valley and tech, and that's like the epicenter of tech and startup. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I was born and raised in Burgaw, North Carolina.
Awesome.
Born and raised Penn Memorial Hospital. So I went to school at Burgaw Elementary, Burgaw Middle, Penner High School, Boy Scout Troop 242, there on St. Mary's AME right there on Satchwell Street. So my entire I left at 17. I was 17 when I graduated high school. So my 0 to 17 interaction with life was in Pender County and the Wilmington area. Wilmington was the town for us.
Yep.
And then in summers I was in Atkinson. My dad is from Atkinson.
Yeah.
And my pop's family is from there. So West Pender, Sunset, and Atkinson.
Yep.
So I grew up very rural, community folks. We smiled at everybody. You spoke to everybody. It's kind of the way I was raised. You didn't see anybody that wasn't a friend. You help people. You give money to the homeless. Like my grandmother used to bring the homeless people in, and we would feed them. So when I saw some of these things that the city was doing, I was like, man, I just wasn't raised that way. I got country boy values. So that going out to Silicon Valley when I finally got there through my retail career, getting recruited from Macy's, and then I left Macy's to start my own startup. You know, in California, some of that country boy stuff was great because I just talked to everybody. You know, that's when they started saying I shake hands, kiss babies, because I didn't know anything. So I had you got to be open. Yeah. You know, you can't be a jerk. You can't be an asshole.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we talked about that a little.
We talked about that. A lot of the problem is you, bro. You got to open yourself to the community. And so a lot of what I learned growing up, just trying to, my first startup was about creating an off-grid or renewable energy for people that didn't have access in the Caribbean, Latin America, Africa. So it was the first project where I saw a completely different type of environment, people working together around the world for a problem set, not for egos or titles. It was kind of like, this is the problem set, what do you do? What do you do well? How can you contribute to this? And I love that. That really is what transformed me to want to leave the corporate world to kind of enter that world of technology and innovation and entrepreneurship. So that's kind of, now I'd always had a vision to come back. Because I remember one day, one of my good friends, man, there was this diner I used to go to all the time in South San Jose. And me and the owner became really good friends, and he had a picture on his wall of San Jose in 1990, because his dad was an orange farmer. And I was like, man, when was that? Like in the, in 1800s, 1900s? He was like, nah, that was 30 years ago. And I was like, what? And that's when it clicked. I was like, so I know where I'm from. I'm Burgaw, from rural Pinda County. When I saw those orange groves, and it literally, all of that came together in 30 years, but it was based on big ideas coming together, and then the spinoffs that would just support the big ideas that were maturing through that. And I think that's what we want to do at the local level. I think real community prosperity happens locally, driven by the people like you and I that grew up here. We have skin in the game. We don't want to go hit big and go feed investors from our private equity from around the world. Right. I want to go take care of Burgaw because my mom is there. My daddy's in Atkins, and my Aunt Retha is 74. She's over on that side. So I don't want bad water because my little girl is going to be drinking that. So I think entrepreneurship should shift towards local entrepreneurs being the problem solvers. And when local governments, if they're going to be a partner, they should begin to understand that that's where the real skin is.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, we went just if you look at the evolution of, the world, but, just looking at the United States, like how when it was based on, when it was founded, it was based on community, right? You had small settlements of people that all, we pooled resources and everybody worked together. Like everybody had a job or a role within that community, right? And then, as time goes on and, technology gets in, and all this, then we start getting globalization, and then all of a sudden you've got, the communities are not self-sustainable, basically, is what it comes down to, right? Like there's places where, you can't even get fresh food, right? Like it's called a damn food desert, But I think what we're talking about and what it's coming back to is people are starting to realize the power of how sustainability at a local and community level is super important as we go on, and entrepreneurship is such a good way to solve that.
Absolutely, man. And I'll tell you, this is a real life story too, when you talk about going back to community and the company's origin. I think the country's origin, so my grandfather was born in 1924, I think 24. My grandmother was born in 1911. So, when I was 12, I moved in with my grandmother. I spent summers in Sunset with my grandfather, and I was a young cat, so I wasn't old enough to get on and do the farmer details. So I just listened to him. I was there on the truck reading books. And I think he had 4th grade education. My grandmother graduated from high school. And I've seen everything that they advised against and how the world was going to be, it roll out. He would tell me, never get rid of pennies because that's the real dollar. The value is in, he would say, he didn't really say it, I've kind of iterated it. Money is a store of value, unit of account. You need fungibility, meaning you can kind of itemize it, to break up into different segments. And it needs to be something that we all agree upon. Yeah. So he would say, your silver, that's real money. Those things, those are real money. Those are the things that you can value. He would tell me things like, those aren't dollars, that's a Federal Reserve note. Yeah. And I didn't, at the time, I was like, what are you talking about? But all of that led to, I did a lot of work, research in finance. As I got into college and a lot of my freelance writing was because, I watched that generation and some of the old rural cats that, weren't educated or indoctrinated, really is what it is. They didn't have any degrees, they didn't have any high school education, they didn't have any college or postdoctorates. But I've watched in my own lifetime them be correct. So I have a different perspective. This is why our generation is unique. We're kind of, I know my generation, I'm 47, so I'm what they consider a zennial. So I'm analog and digital. Like we were the first gamers, with Nintendo. This is why when my kids are on, I'm like, how the hell am I going to say anything? I remember spending my entire, jumping off the bus, doing homework, just the whatever stipulations that my mom had or grandmother had on me getting on the sticks. Yeah. That's what I did. I wasn't, who am I to judge? So I can see both sides, and I've watched the country go from I just was so immersed in politics. I remember Bill Clinton's speeches on NAFTA. I like have some of these things still saved.
No
I
way.
have a conversation that me and Pat Robertson got into a heated exchange on MSNBC like back in 2003 about the Iraq war. And I've kept and archived all that to be like, oh my God, everything that I was on, like my intuition was right. But most of my intuition was based on grandfather and grandma. So I think our country has a real, we are the generation that can see and can hold you accountable. And now Generation Z, Generation Alpha, they have all the information. They could, before you get up there and make a speech, bro, they've already,
touch of your fingertips.
they know who you are. I was talking with Commissioner Zapple.
Yeah.
He had an engagement with UNCW, and both of us, we were talking about it, and he was fascinated because he was allocated, or he was allotted for 30 minutes. It ended up being like 2 hours, but they wanted to know the real things. You know, he said he was talking about himself, and he said he just thought about it. They already know my bio. All they have to do is look on. They know my position on votes and all that. They want to know why. They want to know how does the real system work. And I think that's what you were talking about, the bureaucracy earlier. I think you're going to see even more people coming into entrepreneurship.
Yep.
Because I think there are going to be more problems just because the societal shifts and all those things, which is where entrepreneurs flourish. And I think the younger generation is going to want to usurp that because they have the information. Everybody has the information. The biggest shift that happened in our society was the invention of the printing press. That's what led to the Industrial Revolution. It was dissemination of information, and people said, well, we can transition from using the animals to machines now. And now we got Europe or Great Britain said, well, we can get all the resources. America said, well, we can do this with trains and all those other things. But the iteration started with, or the catalyst triggering event was the invention of the printing press. Then you had the Protestant Reformation. Then you had the collapse of Catholicism. So I think the information age is one of those unique environments where you almost have to look back at a reference point for something so transformational in order to compare it. Like, we've never had everybody with access to everybody, to all the information in the world at one time in their phone.
It's crazy.
And having the younger you are, the more syntax you have. You're sharper, you're crisper, you're just sharper. It's supposed to be that way. So they're going to want to take a more role because they have access to the information and they see a failed model. And so we're going to try and excuse the failed models. And I think that the next step of leaders politically and entrepreneurship are going to have to understand that social dynamic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I mean, so bringing all that here to like Wilmington and our community, I mean, I think we're in a really incredible place to build, what you've been talking about. So.
Yeah, man, we got the river, we got a beach.
Yeah,
it's October and I want to go to the beach,
seriously.
bro. Some of my partners from California, because it's like $1 million to breathe out there.
Yeah.
They're like, look at that, like,
it is.
Oh my God, Wilmington is going to blow up.
Yeah.
And then I don't know if you heard about the project they're doing down in Myrtle Beach. Myrtle Beach is going to have probably the fastest, right now I think Chattanooga has the fastest connectivity in the country. Okay. Which is why they have so many. The guys that are remote guys, just if you want like the mountains, that's your thing. But now with that, and I forgot the name of the projects. You guys, when they watch the podcast, my Myrtle Beach squad can kind of add some more information on it. But essentially, by I think 2026, 2027, when that project is complete, Myrtle Beach is going to have one of the fastest internets in the world.
No way.
Yeah, or that area, that 60, 40. I think we tipped that.
Yeah.
So this is going to be and then. Mayor Sappho told me this, the corridor connecting Myrtle Beach to Jacksonville, that 17 corridor, by 2030 is going to be 1.5 million people.
Holy smokes.
So we have a triangle type growth opportunity if we can understand that we have, what's going on, the dynamics driving it. We have Myrtle Beach, we have Jacksonville, probably the largest defense contracting epicenter this side of the Mississippi. We have Wilmington, an incredible place which is kind of like, from a logistics perspective with our port and our airports, I mean, we're closer than anybody. And then you have Myrtle Beach is going to have the fastest Wi-Fi in the world. So what we're trying to do is partner with people and build these innovation hubs that are aware of that. And now we can go ahead and start building out problem-solving frameworks, build the infrastructure to support this innovation is going to happen. So if you're between where's the camera? Between frickin' Jacksonville and Myrtle Beach, and you are a local leader, regional economic development planner, this is real world things that are happening, and we have the innovators and the entrepreneurs to support it. So investment local, as we pointed out, what has happened and what it's shown us is if you go after the whales, you're essentially feeding global private equity. Period. You can fact check me, it is what it is. So we have to figure out a way to invest in ourselves.
Man, that last part you said about the global private equity at the
Who's Walmart feeding? So we got Walmart, all these jobs, yay!
Yeah.
So the profits, the shares, all those things, we essentially, and this was the other thing Dr. Machine was telling me, you know, there are 4 types of employees, and I don't want to steal his thunder, but he broke it down, economic development, how bad that is. Like if the jobs aren't going to the right people, the existing population suffers. And this is why local politics is so wacky, because we haven't really dug down into what a job means. And I don't want to get too much into it because I need to do some more build out, so I'll write more about it. But essentially it points to more local entrepreneurship, innovation, and development. The reason why Minneapolis became Minneapolis is because the founder Target was there. And he just put it all back into Minneapolis. I mean, I heard the guy, you know, when I was in Google for Startups, he spoke to us and he basically told us what his blueprint. And I was so inspired by that. And I'm like, I want to go back to my community and do that.
Heck yeah.
You know, and just build your own network and squad. And so all of the people that became investors or what became his major suppliers, they were all from there. And they just spread out from there.
That's amazing.
And we have that opportunity in so many, even we're here in UNCWCIE with the blue economy. And we got the offshore wind project. Are you serious? We should own renewable energy. Period. We should own renewable energy in the blue economy and all of Canopy Ventures and all of the business networks and the investment networks. But they need an investable infrastructure to support it. And I think that's what we need here. We need an investable infrastructure for instead of saying, well, there's no funding, there's no funding. Well, you can't make chicken salad out of chicken shit. So we got to make it investable.
That wouldn't taste very good.
Yeah, even same ingredients, all organic, but
it's all
talk to me.
Oh man. So tell me more like about this idea of an innovation hub. Like what does that mean? Like practically, how do we execute on something like that?
Sure, man. Well, we have a lot of different. The IQ in Winston-Salem is really good. The Pearl in Charlotte, the Cortex in St. Louis. That's a really large model. But essentially, what an innovation hub or an innovation district or an innovation corridor is clustering all of the economic development activity, entrepreneurship, innovation, workforce housing. You create a live, work, play, learn environment in one area, and you bring all of your problems to that area for dissemination. So now you pool all your resources, all of your investments there, and then you build your ideation to commercialization pipeline from this one organized, structured environment to then send out into your regional economic development.
Got it.
So that's essentially, it's organizing these things. And this is why local economists need to understand it. This is like a necessity. Like 87% of businesses are micro businesses, 87. So that's $250,000 in revenue, less than 10 employees. So a micro business by definition is any sole proprietorship company, organization, firm that has less than $250,000 in revenue annually, less than 10 employees.
And less than 10 employees.
Right, so this is going to be the major segment. If you look into the data of who came into all of the filings that we had over the last 2 years, I think 3 years, record-breaking filings we've had, that's that segment. But the failure rates are still the same. Actually, they're increasing. So we're going to have an even bigger problem. So we have to figure out, because most of these people are coming in, they're just professionals. They have really high skill sets, but the skill set to run a business, which is a whole nother
it's a different skill set.
They're going to struggle, and the reason why they're struggling is they're so highly skilled, they're such high performers in their jobs or as a vice president. I know I was a guy, I had massive failures, and this is real world experience, I'm telling you. Even though as an executive from Macy's, and it was one of, Macy's was the number one behind Walmart retailer in the world. When I was there, Macy's was the number one online retailer. And so I learned that business very, very well. So, but when I got into my own startups, it was totally different, Bill.
So you're at a completely different ballgame.
Yeah, so if you don't have, that's part of the system that we develop. You got to have a system for these people in order to, in all of my corporate roles, even back when I was a store manager for Food Line, we had standard practices. I walked in at 8 a.m. By 10 a.m., Fresh Market needed to look like this. It was almost like I knew what it needed to look like, and it's regimented me in my mind and my team. They think I'm a Nazi about this, but shout out to Mark Jungers. He told me this, is as hard-headed as I was. If you don't have a structure in place, your mind's going to take you all over. And this is what happens in entrepreneurship. It's very talented, very creative people, but without that structure, they're going to spend it. They're going to do a whole lot of really great things that mean absolutely nothing to moving the venture forward.
Exactly.
And this is why the failure rate is so high.
It's like the classic, just like following like the shiny object.
Yeah, man, you're going to follow the shiny object versus getting in and blocking and tackling.
Yeah, because being a visionary it's different skill sets, right?
Yeah.
Being a visionary and coming up with ideas is so much different than saying, okay, I've got to be disciplined and I've got to execute today, this week, this month, this year, so that we can actually make this all come together, right? I mean,
yeah, man, I had an amazing conversation with one of my mentors from Google for Startups, and we went to I went back to all of the information they gave us when we got to this point. And you got to have a visionary, but you got to have a beast that does operations. You got to have a monster that can communicate and understand that. You got to have a technical guy that can make everything productive and efficient. Yep. And you need a good cheerleader. So you need 5. So all you need is 5. In today's world with technology and systems, so a lot of where the challenges are is sometimes we try to apply old business models to the new environment. And I found that was some of the challenge that I was having, is that, this is what, you don't need a CEO or a this and a this and a this. You don't need this hierarchical structure. You almost need a tactical team because everyone's going to get the information.
Yep.
So the visionary, the smart guy might be really, 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 really smart at this, but the person over there that had the direct experience is actually the subject matter expert.
Right.
So the visionary what you need more is you need a person that's a good collaborator that can clear the space so the best idea can get to the top. And then you need to operate it, execute it, and then you need a sales and marketing person to convey it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the big shift, and that's what our system and what we're trying to do at Genesis Block. It's a transformational shift in how you run an organization.
So when you say ideation to commercialization, I mean, is that basically kind of the process? You got an idea, you need someone that can make it come to fruition, and then you got to sell it, and then you got to support it, and then you got to keep it going. You got an idea,
then you got to validate that idea. Then you got to have a prototype because we got to figure out who the customer is and find that product market fit. Then we got to incubate it, meaning we got to develop a model to support this customer that we've discovered and this product that we've created. And then we go to commercialization. And then we say, based on this model that we've developed from this customer that we've discovered through this prototype process, from this validated idea, now we're ready to fit that into the market.
That's awesome.
And so it structures it so that we're not, if you haven't got a customer, if you haven't done these things, you're not ready for the market. And so as other outside potential investors, other ecosystem partners, they understand that you're part of a structured system.
Yep.
So that really is the golden why to our system and what we've been working the last 3 years on bringing to life.
So when you guys founded Genesis Block, like the vision that you had for it 3 years ago when you founded it to what it is today, has it changed course a little bit, pivoted a little bit, or is it like?
It's pivoted a lot. I think now it's almost reintegrated with what the original platform vision was. To build platforms to support this and making it accessible to more people, building software, building systems. I think now we're to that point. So a lot of it was, it's kind of like in what comes first, the chicken or the egg. We had to identify what was the real problem set. When I went into Genesis Block, initially it was, okay, let's just build a co-working space. And then it was like, no, we need incubators. And then we were like, no, these companies they're just going to market, they don't have any bones. And then it was like, oh my God, not only do they not have any bones, they haven't had any business experience at all. So this is where the Jumpstart Academy came from. Like they had to get introduced. And then we partnered with Jerry over at Cape Fear Community College Small Business Center, here with Heather at CIE. Eventually it was Diane back then, April over at Brunswick Community College. Basically the Small Business Coalition, Jakima. So how do we, guys, all of us provide these services, but really what we need to develop is an ideation and commercialization pipeline, and now plugging in based on where they are. So that's been the evolution of it, is we got to get a structure around it and build out a service profile based on where that person is at the stage of their venture, and build communication tools, resiliency tools that a founder or company or idea would need at this stage before. Because commercialization with like an idea, like a research idea, it get into a not-for-profit to apply it at community level. Like if we took affordable housing, if someone had an idea, let's say the endowment or a not-for-profit has an idea about affordable housing, we put it through the same process.
Yeah.
And we build the same partnership, the same network with other people that can validate it, other small communities maybe, we could test it out, prototype it, and then, so now before it becomes a policy, now our politicians and local leaders know that it's gone through a process. They're not throwing darts at it.
Exactly.
And that's why we want, this is a community. Like innovation is not just Facebook or creating IG or Instagram.
Yeah.
That's what, when people think, now they think innovation, they think
Exactly.
about social media platform. Like, no, innovation is just taking something that is existing that's not working and building something better.
Yeah.
Simple and plain.
Man, I was going to say, like, you know, just for lack of a better example, like, you know, like a bookkeeping and accounting, for example, like, you know, there's the traditional CPA model does not provide the ongoing services that a small business needs throughout, you know, the day, the month, the year. And so it's like, you know, there's gaps in the market everywhere. And like you said, it doesn't have to be some cool technology or like AI. Like it's like, just take like an old kind of boring business and tweak it a little bit and adjust it to what the market actually needs. And you got yourself a little something there.
I heard like one of our, it's interesting that you said it, one of the people at Google for Startup said this. He said the most incredible invention in history of capitalism out of all this, all these things, was the third line on the accounting line item sheet. Because now you have profit, loss.
Yeah, exactly.
As small as that may seem like the enemy, no one thinks about it, but that's that guy.
Yeah.
That's who did it, the guy in the movie. Have you seen the movie? What's it? Is it I'm looking right at the homie face, not The Big Short. What's the other one with Ryan Reisling? But anyway, he talks about a guy that came up with the mortgage-backed security.
Yes.
In '72. Had it not been for that guy, there wouldn't have been an MBS. We wouldn't have had the economy. Like, we would have been toast, because really the United States economy maxed out in '63. This is why LBJ needed a great deal. It was to get liquidity back in. Then Nixon in '72 was going to close the gold standard. We tapped out in '72 from Bretton Woods. So America, as far as production capacity, the America that we know and everyone glorifies, really tapped out in '63. So really, now that we have all this information, so '64 was really, in my opinion, the first stimulus.
No way.
Just look at what happened in the country. Then '72, what happened? The rest of the world saw the wheels. '71, the rest of the world saw the wheels come. So they said, we want our gold back. And they said, hell no. That's why I had to close. And this is where the petrodollar, this is why we went to the Saudis in the Middle East, because we needed that to back the dollar, because we lost the gold standard.
Yep. Wow. Period. I learned something new today.
Just pull it back together. When you pull it back together, so now we know how we got to this point. Then the American consumer was tapped in the '90s, so China's got 1 billion people. How do we get capital there? So the investment that should have gone back into American productive capacity, that got shipped into that capacity, because private equity was controlling our capital, and not you, I, a man over there, the people that have children that live here, that has nieces and nephews. The capital decisions were usurped because we gave all of our capital to the financial institutions and let them make investment decisions. And I think, as unpopular as it is to unblur the lines of cause and effect, because our country is still in this position, if you're going to take a leadership role, you need to understand that, so that you can have a decision-making framework and a policy-making framework in order to build policies to offset that reality, which is local investment, local innovation, community development.
And what you talk about with the innovation hubs, I mean, it is absolutely a government, a private and public like collaboration.
Yes, it
like
is,
100%.
100,000%.
Yeah.
If you look at, we've been doing a lot of research on the Global Institute of Innovation Corridor, so I've been looking at a lot of data, and this has become one of the most viable real estate investments, because it is taking public public capital, but the investment is going to be in the local community, because it is the private capital is going to, where's it going to come from? I mean, if you just look at the country, you look at the major investment, sovereign, pools of capital, what do you want to call it?
Yeah.
What's going to make your community viable for them to invest in? Just think about it. Like, where's the investment going to come in? It has to happen organically. Like, if you look at the private equity firms, that's mostly Wall Street. They're not going to come invest in the north side. Like, so we got to pull that together. So if that's the big problem set in the community, I'm just throwing something out here just because I have family. I live north side, I live in Flats, so technically I'm on the other side.
Yep.
But when I walk to Don Luca's to go get pizza and drink at Pallet, I see where the challenges are, and I see what types of investment are needed, because that's where I grew up at. So I know more about what's going on in their mind, in my view, than the person that's making the decision.
Absolutely.
And so that's why I'm so passionate here, is because I grew up here. You can't. I'm the subject matter expert.
Yeah.
And the struggling youth, because I was that problem set, and so the innovation, if you will, that this is wrong, is coming from direct empirical evidence. Genuine knowledge can only be attained via direct experience.
Yep.
Simple and plain, brother.
And like with the idea of private equity, as an entrepreneur, as someone that starts a business, generally speaking, most people have this idea that I'm going to exit, right?
Yeah, man.
I'm going to exit, I'm going to sell my business, and I'm going to ride off into the sunset. And hey, I mean, that's great, and many people have done it, but like, what if everybody that starts a business sells it to private equity? What does that do to us?
Serfdom. Look at the frickin'.
Exactly.
That's why we're just going back. It's called serfdom.
Exactly.
I hate to be so blunt about it.
No.
It's serfdom.
Yeah.
It becomes a kleptocracy. Kind of why the things you're seeing on TV and on your social media reels.
Exactly.
Now. So
I mean, that's
like
a big. At the Biz
That's
Expo.
what happens.
At the Biz Expo, when we had Dr. Katabi, we had the other two gents, the president of the Federal Reserve Bank, Tom, and then the KPMG was a KPMG senior economist who was a UNCW alumni. But one of the questions I wanted to ask them was not necessarily around policy, but I was like, when you guys look at the future, if every small business sells out to private equity, what the hell does that mean for all of us?
So one thing that we have to just sit and let's just be honest about it. Our wealth right now, what we consider the wealth of our country, is based in valuation of assets, largely driven by the stock market, and real estate are buffering that.
Yep.
So the Fed is essentially right now, in my mind, is monopoly, because if you look at what really drives a real economy, if you look at our economy, even the way we measure GDP, like we measure gross domestic product, we've rarely used the PPP, which is actually your production. Like right now in our GDP, if there's like a lawsuit, that's considered production. Seriously, like with the nominal GDP, any type of economic activity.
To me, that should be waste.
If Sticky Fingers over there steals your radio, they count that as a win, bro.
What?
So if you look at the PPP, it's like a totally different story. It's like what the French toast. If you look at most things we ship out now it's like wood and like cardboard. It's like we're not shipping out like things that we're building, like machines. Hopefully we can get more food. I'm from Pender County, and I think that's where the opportunity is. I think the opportunity east of 95 is to invest in the agricultural revolution that's going to happen, because people are going to want fresh food. And we have really, really, really clean water. And coming from California, the biggest thing over there is where it doesn't matter if the irrigation guys don't have clean water, I don't care how good my water is coming out of my faucet, because everything I eat is going to be contaminated.
Exactly.
And so I think that's where North Carolina, especially east of North Carolina, which is the big focus as far as economic development, we can own agriculture and we can own ag tech, because we're going to be the people with the production capacity that can innovate, elevate, and we can go help. Like my grandfather was a farmer, so I have skin in the game. North Carolina, behind Vermont, has the highest number of family-owned farms in the country.
Did not.
Yeah, so
makes sense.
Makes sense. So we should have, if they're a policymaker, and our guys with Michael Lee and all these guys, number one, if they really care about, we should have the most dynamic policy around supporting family farms and building an innovation framework off of that, so that we can keep that and build off of that. So that's what we want these innovation hubs for. So we can take these small known facts, and now we can build infrastructure to support that.
Yeah.
And I think that's what the whole purpose of the innovation hub is.
I love it. And also like educating, and maybe education's not the right word, but helping people understand that, a successful exit of your business doesn't have to mean selling out. It means building a team of, people that can keep that thing going, and you get to elevate yourself to, be the chairman of the board, or to, just work less and enjoy some cash flow.
That's what I'm saying, Chris.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that, man.
Just pass it to the squad. That's
yeah, keep it in the family, right?
Right. That's what I think it is
sell it to your employees, or work out something like that.
Why would you? I think it's a deeper conversation. You're bringing up. I hadn't even really thought about that, bro, until you did. Like, why wouldn't we be doing that? Like, why is there all this rush for everybody to get your startup and go sell it to Satan? Because that's the one.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, why would we do that?
Yeah, I don't.
So yeah, I got to dig more into that, man. You don't put me on to something.
Good.
Right.
Well, I was having beers with my buddy. Beers are always like some of the best conversations happening. But I was asking him about his business, and he's got a really, really kind of small business. He grows mushrooms, medicinal ones.
Solid.
And I was like, so what do you, like 5 years, 10 years, what's your plan? What would be your ultimate goal? He's like, man, I really want to build up my business and, and then like sell it. And then I think I'd just take all that money and just start doing what I was doing already before. And so like, as he's saying this, he's realizing what he's saying. He's like, why the hell would I sell my business?
Why would I do that?
It's ridiculous.
Right. Why would I do that?
Yeah.
Like, why not keep the asset to yourself? I mean, I think, and that's the other thing too. I think, and we saw this at Genesis Block. Sometimes you can get so caught up in the spin cycle that you don't realize that you're there, and a lot of the work you're doing isn't value add.
Yeah.
So you got to automate, eliminate, and delegate every quarter, dog. Automate, delegate, and eliminate every quarter, dog. You'll get stuck on stupid in the spin cycle doing the shiny eggs, things that you think are like for us. When I saw the need over the last, I think 2 years ago, I started writing about innovation hubs. But that's where the real miss is east of North Carolina. And then when Mayor Sappho, this was I think like in 21, we were just at an event and he told me that, and it just stuck in my head. I said, are you serious, man? We're gonna have that population here by 2030 and we're not, why? I mean, this is a much better place to live than Research Triangle. Are you kidding me? I mean, I love Raleigh. I lived in Raleigh for 3 years, but Jesus. Yeah. I mean, we can recruit all that. That's ours.
I know.
So we just need to build it. And that's why I think we need more. I do think guys like us, entrepreneurs and innovators, need to be more politically engaged because I think that we can bring more people there. Yeah. So I think that's where, because I'm fourth. I mean, I've always been independent. But I've always been very political. I was a speech writer back in the day for the Democratic Party. Mm-hmm. I was a chair for the Libertarian Party for a little bit.
Heck yeah.
I never really. I saw some of the things with the Republican Party. I like Ron Paul. Because of his stance on the Federal Reserve. I'm a real big fan of Ron Paul because he wants sound money. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how you have prosperity if you don't have sound money.
Yep.
This goes back to Adam Smith. If you go back to the first guy, sound money was the basis. And I think we've gotten away from that. And I think that's a really big problem. And sound money is typically locally driven. You don't necessarily need a Federal Reserve note. You can exchange anything, doesn't matter.
Yeah, exchange value for value.
You exchange value for anything. So yeah, that's kind of what it is, man.
I was so where was I going with the innovation hub, and like so where we are now to where you want to be, like where you envision like the perfect spot of being. Yeah. What does that roadmap look like? What are some of the key milestones we got to hit?
Well, we kind of started Block East with that concept. Like we need to just get in what I call innovation assets, which are just places where an idea is going. It's just they're in some place with ideation, commercialization. That's the soul. Just to foster innovation and getting things commercialized. So that was kind of fun because Cape Fear Community College was very open, Jim and the team, to the idea to foster a local environment for local entrepreneurs, which is perfect. We have a really good CFC Culinary program as well. But now I think where the first step is we have to get the local economic development. Those guys need to understand it, and they need to understand how it's value add for them. Yeah. Because if you're going, and I talked to this guy from Germany, which was perfect, and I wish people would have been there part of the conversation. He said it was related to the offshore wind, because I'm a renewable energy guy. Yeah. So we had a deep conversation. He said one of the biggest things going to keep companies from coming here versus Jersey with all the offshore stuff is you guys don't have a 10-year supply chain. Like I can't bring my company here if I can't see in your supply chain where you have the workforce, you have the people that know that I need a 20-year supply chain if I want to invest $85 million. Yep. So having these innovation hubs is a clear indicator for economic development, guys, that you're serious if you are going to go buffalo hunting, brother. I'm not saying I'm against buffalo hunting, but yeah, let's check the fly paper to see what's sticking. They're looking to see if you can support them putting hundreds or tens of millions of dollars into your community. Do you have the people, the supply chain, the innovation, the capacity to support that? Period. And with an innovation hub and innovation districts, that's an intentional environment to support that. You know, Scott and homie Chris, those guys are gonna love it. They would love it for Natalie, the Chamber of Commerce. Now look at how you can sell the area. You've carved it out and said, this is our area. All of those problems that you're gonna have, people that are gonna come into Wilmington, they're worried about traffic. We have a location, we have an environment that you can participate in and give us feedback. Your ideas are gonna be here. We can have a community place for ideas, which is what I think. I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
And now we have a public environment for all the ideas to go to that point and have community visibility on it.
That makes sense.
That's kind of what Plato was freaking saying. That's what they did, bro. Literally, I just read it this morning.
That's
what they did.
The Stoics and ancient philosophers, like they
did.
knew their shit, man.
Yeah,
like,
that's what they did, bro.
They called it out thousands of years ago.
You see Alexander Hamilton, he hit the homie back in the day. Like we let so many things go by, like corruption now. It's because we like punk asses. That's why it's so much. Like my granddaddy was like, oh, Jesus didn't take no shit, bro. It is what it is. It was whatever. You know, but that standard, if you're going out into the wild, like, you know, I'm from the country, so everybody knows you don't mess with bears.
Right.
Unless you got a gun. Because the bears Joe Rogan was talking about that. And he's on, because I've seen, man, that was the one thing. I'm not scared of snakes. You know, I grew up out in the country. Those things like this, just don't, alligators, none of that stuff. Bro, if I see a bear, let's get up out of there.
I'm out of here.
Plan B. So I think that's what it is. I think we have to become more active locally and organize our voice with really clear solution frameworks. And then get people that are supporting that clear solution framework.
So leadership and governance of a collaborative thing like this, like how does that work? I mean, there's not going to be. Tell me.
I think it's multifaceted. If you look at Cortex, really has a good structure. Like they have. It's intentional planning on the community too. So you have a not-for-profit or whatever set up that takes over the governance model. You have an operational component, and then you have like the people that look at the system is going to measure it, the impacts, what impact go versus impact goals, the success targets, or whatever the community deems. So you have an independent, apolitical system, and then you have this structure that's going to manage the community and make sure that innovation is coming in, and make sure we have programming, make sure that investors are connected to events. And now you just have a structured environment for all these things to happen. And then you have the data to support it. So if Canopy comes up, he's got Breeser is at this stage. They may know there's an opportunity with some of Carl's guys in Asia to plug that in. We have all of this information. We can build a startup, almost like a venture hub. We can build a company to support that much faster because you have the structure to do it locally. So we say build local, do all these things local, but we don't have the infrastructure to support it. So now this gives us the infrastructure to support those things.
Well, I mean, hearing all this, I don't think, I feel like you've already made a lot of progress in starting to set this up. And then also if I look around at like some of the, key players, like, for example, the Chamber, the Biz Journal with the marketing.
Absolutely.
And then you get Jim.
Rob.
Rob. You get Jim. With the Network for Entrepreneurs, and there's so many other good organizations out there, and then our local, municipal and county government, like the players are all there.
And we have the POC. We have the #1 startup ecosystem in the world.
Hell yeah, we do.
Right.
Yeah, we got it.
So we got a POC. So like business is business. So if we want to talk about all this data driven, and it's backed by science. What science really is a measurement to determine if something has consistency within itself. Simple and plain, brother. That's what science is. So it must have consistency within itself, and that's what this system does. It's not measuring. It's apolitical. It's measuring if they said that this idea was going to generate these outputs, just like we're saying this idea is going to generate this amount of sales, revenue, blah, 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 blah. Now we have a structured environment to settle it, and at the end of it, here it is. Apolitical. Algorithms and shit, bro. It is what it is. Let's let the data tell us what's going on. So I don't even need to hear your campaign speech. We're actually mute. I don't need your speech, bro. I can see it.
Well, it'll certainly be pretty interesting after we go through the election cycle here.
I can't wait. Look at
I'm
my
so ready
Facebook
for
page, though.
I'm so ready for it to just be over.
Bro, I'm about to just start throwing it. Like, I'm going to watch Brewster's Millions. Now, y'all seen Brewster's Millions? I'm an 80s baby. So Brewster's Millions was Richard Pryor ran for the mayor of New York.
Oh, my God. No,
and
that
as
sounds
none of the
hilarious,
above, bro. And still won. That's why I'm going to be on that tip. I'm gonna be on that. I love politics, but I just think that I've loved politics since I was like 4. I remember like Reagan. Being real young. I remember watching all the speeches and politics. I went to school for political science, so I've been and I was a freelance writer since like 98, 99.
Yeah.
So I've had like over 200 some things published. I just ghostwrite. So I follow politics very, very, very closely. So I'm always watching behind the scenes, and so whenever I challenge some of the local political leaders. It's not just some Joe Blow thing. It's for real, man. I've watched you, and I'm trying to see if are you supporting a special interest group, or are you supporting people, period? Because if you have an interest group, to me, that's the biggest problem in politics, bro. We've sold a cow to buy milk.
Yep. Man, unfortunately, we're already kind of getting to the end of our time. I know we're already. But before we didn't even get a chance to talk about the book that you're writing. So,
the freaking book!
I know. So give us. Give us. Let's talk about the book.
2 minutes.
Let's get that in.
So it's going to be called. I'm working with a lot of people here, Hoop and Squad here. It's going to be called Tuning into PBS, and PBS is your personal broadcast signal, kind of like your frequency.
Yep.
Because the first thing we do at Genesis Block is we go through an entrepreneur mindset workshop. Mm-hmm. Because if your mindset doesn't shift, then it's a waste of time. So that was kind of the brainchild of it, mm-hmm. or the first triggering event. But then I thought about it, and we used this video from KRS-One, who's one of my favorite rappers, and he talks about Rockstar, and he talks about what's that. He disconnects you from the third dimension. Mm-hmm. He says, why do you have something that's going on, a dialogue that's going on in your head that you can't see, smell? It's not connected to any of your vibrational interpreters, your eyes, your ears, your tongue, your skin, your nose. But there's a dialogue that's going on. Mm-hmm. And you can hear it, you can sense it. You know what a watermelon smells like, even though there's no watermelon here. Mm-hmm. So that means there's a part of you that's active, that has a sense. What's that? Because that seems to be that guy. And so Tuned into PBS is kind of helping you. It's like a spiritual, psychological pathway toward helping you discover that you're that guy, that you're bigger than your circumstance. You're bigger than where you were born. You're bigger than where you were raised. And like I put on my Facebook page this morning, you can't change the past, but you can look at yourself in the mirror and change the end. And so it's all about framing you and giving you the tools to be able to change that end.
Awesome, man. That sounds really interesting.
So I'm still finishing, and it's like been a journey for me, man. It's more of shedding. It's like, I think that's why I'm losing weight so much. I think it's like an expression of things that I didn't even realize. I think that's part of my journey of coming back home, because a lot of things I ran away from. Mm-hmm. So sometimes you have to come back into the chicken coop, if you will, into the soup, because I knew the racial dynamic was here in Wilmington for 1898. So there's a lot of things that are inherent to a person like the kid, because I was kind of like the subject. And so now that I'm like out of all of that, but I was raised very pure. Like my grandmother, they were like angels, man. I didn't curse, I think, until I got in college, ECU, bro. Yeah. Sorry, you just did it. I was pure until I got there. So it was like I was.
That's so funny.
It gave me a sense of purity, and that I want to like help people, because that's all I really knew growing up. So a lot of the things that I picked up, I'm like, I got to shed that off. No, I don't have most of it. I went to Penn High School, and I just watched this Trump phenomenon, how it like divided so many people. Like I looked at it on Facebook, I'm like, bro, we graduated in '95. We never got any of that bullshit. Yep. We went out together. My people are like black rednecks. So it was like none of us have shit. So when you talk about race, we all grew up poor. So why are we letting Joe Blows from around cause this divisiveness? So a lot of what Genesis Block was, I wanted to bring people together and collaborate and connect around using entrepreneurship as a pathway towards economic prosperity and social reconciliation. We can all eat a damn sandwich and have a beer together.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Bam.
Well, I'm glad you came back to Wilmington.
Yeah, man.
I'm
Glad to
glad
be
you and
back.
Tracy have done what you've done with Genesis Block.
Appreciate it, brother.
I look forward to being a part of the collaborative and the hub and stuff going
Oh,
forward.
absolutely, man. We can't wait, man. Thanks for having me, brother.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Absolutely.